All right, let's give it up another round of applause for Zach Westfall. All right, our next speaker he's a mobile app developer, and he's had a ton of great successes in his career, and we're about to learn a little bit more about him. His name's Wong, and give him a round of applause, please.
So I want to apologize in advance for reading my speech from my computer screen. I literally wrote this speech in my hotel at 3 in the morning today. But let me explain. I had another 15-minute speech that I gave before at another university a few days ago, and you can find that speech on YouTube. But before this morning, I was prepared to deliver that speech to you guys. But I'm really honored by this opportunity, so I decided to write a whole new speech just for you guys. And I'm going to keep it exclusive for just this event. I won't repeat this speech ever again. You can watch my other speech, which is a bit more detailed. It's about an hour long on YouTube. And I'll throw this up on YouTube as well. Before I begin, I want to answer the two most basic questions that you probably have in your mind right now, which is, who are you and why should I listen to you? You'll learn more about me over the course of this speech, so let me answer the second question for you. Does anyone here have an iPhone? It doesn't matter if you don't, but for those of you who do have an iPhone, you can actually follow along in my speech for the next few minutes, because I'm going to talk about some of the apps in the App Store, so you could open up the App Store and check it out. If you're listening to this speech in the future on YouTube, the ranking might be different. So if I say, like, an app in the 3rd rank, it'd probably be different. But the people that are here right now can follow along. And all these rankings are accurate up to this morning when I wrote the speech. It might have changed by the time I'm saying this stuff. So if you open up the App Store right now and go into the top app charts and go into the news category, I'll give you guys some time to do that. So basically the top app charts in the news category. All right, I'll just keep going, and then you guys could just catch up. So if you look at the number 2 news app right now, the number 2 news app right now, 50 Radio, that's me. That's my app. There was an app that I created 5 years ago, and it's a police scanner app that lets you listen to the police radios. Since then it's expanded to firemen, ambulance, airport towers, music, talk, and sports radios. And it's been 5 years now, and it's still kicking ass and making millions of dollars. So for the past 5 years, I was making more and more every year. If you scroll down a bit to the number 7 or number 8 news app, there's an app called Drudge Report. That's also me. So you can also go into the free news app, and if you scroll down to the number 6 free news app, that's another police scanner app. And I want to talk about this competing police scanner app for a bit. It's called Police Scanner Plus. Right now, it's the number 2 police scanner app. 50 Radio is the number 1 police scanner app. And Police Scanner Plus makes about half of what 50 Radio does. But half of a few $1 million is still a few $1 million. And does anyone know why I know exactly how much this app makes? It's not public information, by the way. The reason why I know this is because that number 2 police scanner app is also by me. I actually created an app just to compete against myself. After 50 Radio became really popular, a lot of clones of 50 Radio came out. And these other police scanner apps, they just basically copied what I did. They didn't even innovate it or add any new features to it. And they were still making hundreds of dollars hundreds of dollars per day from my app idea. And they were leeching off of my app's popularity by using my app's name, 50 Radio, in their keywords. Or some of them even actually just straight up copied my app's name and called their app 50 Police Scanner. So if you look at one of the other top paid news apps, you'll see another app that's kind of similar to 50 Radio. It's like has like a yellow icon. It looks kind of like a police scanner. That one isn't by me. So you could see how people are trying to clone and copy my app idea. And he copied almost everything about me. You know, all the, even the, down to the app icon is almost identical. That's all he did was just change it to yellow. That app, I'm speaking about that app because that app used to be the #2 police scanner app. And I emphasize used to be because I kicked his ass twice and I took that #2 spot away from him. And I did this without even copying my own app. So if you were to download Police Scanner Plus and download File Radio, you cannot tell that they were made by the same person. They look completely different. And I did this because I kind of want to prove a point. I want to show you that it's not always about the app's design. Sometimes it's about how well can you market your app. You know, I want to make sure that I wasn't just a one-hit wonder. I want to, you know, repeat my success and show that it's actually repeatable. So basically now I own like the #2 and #1 police scanner apps. So it's kind of like I'm the Pepsi and Coca-Cola of police scanner apps. And you might be thinking, yeah, that's all nice and dandy. You know, you got lucky. I hear that a lot. You got lucky. And if you open up the sports category in the top charts, look at the #3 sports app. There's an app called SPG, Price Guide for Jordan. See, here's an app that has nothing to do with police scanner apps and has nothing to do with news. And it's basically just an app that gives you up-to-date market prices for Air Jordans. And there's a large number of collectors out there who collect these type of sneakers. And some of these old Air Jordans, they fetch you around $2,000 per pair. And if you look at who created that app, it's the company called Rego Apps. And you can take a guess as who Rego Apps is. That's me. So the evidence is in front of you. I have the app marketing strategies that work. You know, I don't just talk the talk, I actually walk the walk. And you could see it, it's verifiable. So hopefully that answers that second question about why you should listen to me. Now let's go back to talking about me for a bit. And there's a reason why I want to talk about my origin story. First, let's circle back to the name of my company, Rego Apps. I get asked this a lot. What does Rego mean? R-E-G-O. What does it mean? It's named after Rego Park, which is actually my hometown. I grew up there and lived there for a good 20 years now. And Rego is actually an abbreviation for Real Good, which is the construction company that built most of the houses in that area. It also means butt crack in Portuguese, but that's a coincidence. I swear to you that's just a coincidence. But yeah, so I chose that name because I didn't want to forget where I came from. Because you see, I didn't actually exactly grow up very rich. Both my parents were from the slums of China. So growing up, my father was forced to work in a government-run farm for only like a few cents an hour. And his parents basically couldn't afford to put him through school, so he was basically like a slave to the communist regime. My mother didn't have any better either. She grew up in an apartment in the government projects, and that apartment wasn't even bigger than a jail cell. So when they both came to New York City, they basically had nothing. My father was so poor that he resorted to sleeping at a YMCA. So he was basically homeless. My mother, she had no skills. She didn't have schooling. She couldn't speak English, but she was really good at sewing. So she worked at a sweatshop in Chinatown. But they both kind of made it in America, you know. And I'm telling you this story about my parents because it's not because I want applause for my humble beginnings. It's because I want to show you that things can turn around for you if you just keep striving for a better life. So don't give up until you've given your last shot. And at the same time, don't be complacent with what you were born with. You make your own fate. But that's not to say that your life can't turn around in the opposite direction really quickly as well. See, I went to a pretty good high school. It's ranked #1 among U.S. high schools with over 3,000 students. And it's the #2 high school in New York behind some really small magnet school. And you had to take an exam to get into this high school. And with like a 96 plus average, I was among the top students in my class. So when I hit college, I was feeling really great. I was feeling like really smart. And I thought I was like the man, but I actually wasn't. In my first semester of college, I had a C plus average. So that was a very humbling experience for me. Because all this time I thought that I could just breeze through college, kind of like the way I did with high school. So I played a lot of like online video games that year. But since I was getting so many low grades and my classmates turned out to be smarter than me, I realized that I wasn't so great after all. So I knew that I had to change. So I stopped playing so many video games and I started studying more. I formed study groups and I went to summer school. But the biggest impact on my life was that I actually went out and started to learn things that they weren't teaching me in college. I started to learn PHP, Java, CSS, SQL, web development, all on my own. So at the very least, I felt like I owed it to my parents who worked so hard to get me here. And the hard work paid off. By the senior year of my college, I had a 3.8 GPA. So does that mean that I was smarter than the other classmates? No, it just means that hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. When I graduated, I felt great again. I just turned into an adult and I was ready to take on the world. So I landed a nice, cozy job at a big tech company in California. And I was happy that all the schooling was over and I could finally start making money. But the thing is, throughout the years that I was in college, my father was very ill. He had been sick for three of the 4 years that I was in college. And by the time I graduated, he had passed away. And it was almost like he waited and hung on to his life to see me graduate. And after he saw that I finished college and got my life together, his spirit and his body just gave way to his illness. I first heard about this from my aunt on the phone, and that phone call, I still remember it very clearly to this day. That phone call turned my life upside down. It turned our whole family's lives upside down. To make matters worse, my house actually caught on fire that same year. And that took tens of thousands of dollars to repair. And my mother was especially hit hard by all this stress and tragedy. She was diagnosed by a psychologist for paranoid psychosis. And these series of events kind of just pushed her too far. So she started displaying signs of schizophrenia for the years after my father passed away. So I had to quit my cozy job in California and return home to New York to take care of my mentally ill mother. There's a wise Chinese man who once said, "Don't pray for an easy life, pray for the strength to endure a difficult one." And man, did I have a difficult one. It was so much that there were days when I contemplated suicide. And I couldn't go through with it because if I left this world, no one would take care of my mother. And I stayed and endured, and then life turned around for me again. See, the year after all this happened, I coded 5 Radio, and that app makes 7 figures a year. And since I coded all myself, I take most of the profits after Apple takes their 30% cut. And so things can turn around for you just like that. That was only within a span of 1 year. I mean, I could honestly say that I hit rock bottom when my father passed away, and that was 2008, which is also the beginning of the recession, so it was really horrible. But by 2009, I had the #1 paid app in all of November. So things just turned around for me just like that. And some of you guys are probably thinking, okay, so where do I start You know, give me some advice for how you became successful. The first question people ask me is usually, where do I learn to code? Or like, what should I learn next? So here's the best advice I can give you about what to learn next. You need to learn how to learn. I mean, I could give you a fish for a day and point to places like, Codecademy, or I even have a website that lists a bunch of places where you can learn how to code stuff. That's regoapps.com/learn. I mean, I could just give you that, but I want you to learn how to fish on your own, and that way you can not ask me these questions about, where can I learn this, where can I learn that. I want you guys to, go out there and search for it for yourselves. Go on Google, look up how do I create a Hello World app. Something simple like that. How do I create like a web browser app? The information is out there, and you just have to figure out how to get to them. Once you learn how to learn, then you wouldn't be asking these kind of questions. I've never asked these questions to anyone myself, because when I started, no one was coding apps at that time, so I had nobody to ask. I had kind of had a touch and go when it came to learning how to code apps. And all of my computer science classmates, the same ones who graduated with me in college, they all had the same education as me. And they all could have done the same thing I did. They all could have coded the same apps and became millionaires themselves, but they didn't. And that's the difference between me and them. It's that I actually went out and I did it. Our ability to learn and to master a skill is probably the most important trait as human beings. And this is the first and foremost advice that I usually give people who are just starting out. As a warning, though, I don't buy into the idea that you can get rich from buying some guy's, book or DVD. There are no shortcuts to becoming successful. And the night that my app blew up, I had over 100,000 new users. So I was basically rolling in cash. I basically made my entire year's salary at the tech company in just one day. And you might look at that and say, wow, you're like an overnight success. Like, what are the secrets? But the thing is, it wasn't actually overnight. I've had apps before Five Radio that didn't actually get big. I would even call them failures. But with each failure, I learned from my mistakes. So Five Radio was actually built upon all these failed apps that I've done before, and some successful things as well. The other truth is that the information you need to start a business is all free online nowadays. So there's no need to pay someone to teach you these things. I learned how to code apps on my own. I didn't go to college for that. The iPhone wasn't even invented when I graduated from college. And before I talk more about coding apps, I kind of want to make this point really clear. I want you guys to not blindly follow what I did. I don't want you to blindly follow any of the speakers today, because making apps is my passion, and it fits who I am. So maybe it could be your passion too, but don't do it for the money. If you hate coding and you hate your job, it will show up in your work. My apps are highly rated because I'm a stickler for detail. Some days I would spend hours just shifting a graphic one pixel at a time just to make sure that's the most visually pleasing. And this stuff shows up in my work. And with the high ratings and reviews that my apps get, I get rewarded with more app downloads and more revenue. And ratings and reviews make a huge difference in the decision process when people go and buy your app. So my passion for coding apps is what got me through all those sleepless nights of just binge coding. Even in the past 10 days, I was binge coding. I was working on a new app. And I'm actually speaking here right now with only 2 hours of sleep for the past 100 hours. My roommate from last night can actually attest to that fact, Rob. So if you don't have that kind of passion, coding could be hell for you, Coding for 100 hours straight on 2 hours of sleep, that's hell for other people. But I don't do it for the money. I do it because it's something that I enjoy doing. I didn't get lucky and pick this passion right away. I've tried other things that other people got wealthy off of. For example, I tried day trading, and I made a lot of money off day trading, but I also lost a lot of money as well. It was very stressful. I became paranoid, I became cranky, and I just hated who I became from day trading. That's not the lifestyle for me, and it just wasn't my passion. So when people hear this about how hard coding is, they sometimes try to outsource that coding. So the most often thing I hear from strangers say is, I have an app idea, but I don't know how to code. Can you code it for me, and I'll give you half the profits? I want to give you some straight talk right now. Ideas are worthless. I hate when I have to be the one who has to burst people's bubbles with that statement, but most app ideas are not worth 2 cents. It's all about execution. So look at Facebook. You think that's an original idea? It's not. It copied off MySpace. It copied off Friendster. But it executed social networking really well. So if you want a good app idea, if you want a good app idea, and you don't want, you kind of want to know what's going to do well, it's really simple. Just open up the App Store, look in the top 100 apps. There's 100 app ideas right there in the top 100 apps for you to pick and clone right there. So that's why app ideas are worthless. So don't minimize the importance of a good app coder. Let's talk about Facebook for a minute. Why is it so successful? Where did MySpace go wrong? See, MySpace wasn't successful because it didn't evolve their product enough. It was messy, and the interface was basically crap. It was a really poor design that persisted for many years. And there was even a window of opportunity for it to get big. It could have just blindly copied what Facebook did, and it could have became Facebook, but they didn't. So if you don't adapt to the changing times, and if you don't plan ahead, you're going to have a bad time. And do you know what else that Facebook did correctly? It targeted college kids. I don't know if you knew this, but Facebook started out being exclusive to college students. You had to have a .edu email account to join. And this move was ingenious. You say, Friendster wasn't that big, so the main competitor was MySpace. And there was a lot of high schoolers in MySpace. So Facebook stood out as being for older kids, the college kids. So it had a sleeker design, and generally people thought it was cooler. So MySpace was kind of like Zune, where Facebook is the iPod Touch. And there's a reason why they made Facebook exclusive. They wanted it to be kind of like a club. And why do clubs make people wait outside, even though they could fit more people in their club? It's because they know that you don't want other people to just join that club randomly. You don't feel that special. If they start filtering who gets in, you feel more privileged about being able to get in. And they don't want to feel, and they want to feel like they got special privileges that other people don't have. So one example of this is that 3 of my friends recently bought a 50-year anniversary Lamborghini Aventador. It's about $100,000 more than an average Aventador. And the average Aventador is already like $500,000. So why would someone spend $100,000 more on a car that only has 20 more horsepower than the other one? It's because they only made 50 of them. So they were willing to pay for that exclusiveness. So learn from this. It's a good marketing strategy. When Gmail started out, you originally had to be invited to get a Gmail account. And this created a lot of demand for that invite. And people were actually selling their invites on eBay. And they're doing the same thing with Google Glass right now. Like, you can't buy a Google Glass unless you were invited to buy one. So they knew that these people who were getting invited, they are the trendsetters. You know, it's not your mother who's getting these invites. It's you. You're getting the invites, the younger folks. And let me explain what I mean by you're the trendsetter. You see, when Instagram started out, they originally had an app where you could only see other people's pics if you have that app as well. I mean, you could share one individual picture from Instagram on your Facebook, but if someone wanted to see all of your Instagram pictures, they actually had to download the app, start a new Instagram account, and then they're able to see your pictures. And then when your friends join, they also upload pictures, and then their friends would have to get the app to see their pictures. So it was kind of like a virus, and it worked out for them. The other question that I get asked often is the other question that I want to ask is why do you share pictures on Instagram? You know, Instagram itself doesn't have pictures. You're the one who creates these pictures on Instagram. You and your friends are the ones who fill up the app with content. And Instagram is actually profiting off your work. You know, each time you upload an Instagram picture, Mark Zuckerberg, you know, gets slightly richer. So how do they get away with all this free labor? What are they paying you? They're paying you with likes and followers. And Instagram is actually a really big thing for high school kids. These kids, they want those followers. I've actually heard that high schoolers compete with their classmates just to see who has the most followers. And there are even apps in the App Store where you can actually pay people to follow you. I'm serious about this. You could pay for likes and followers. That's how badly people want to feel popular. That's how badly people want to feel recognized. And it's not just high school kids. I mean, companies on Facebook are paying sponsored posts just so that they could get the likes on their Facebook page. You know, they're also starving for likes. They want to stay relevant as well. And even celebrities starve for likes. If you follow Rob's Facebook, he actually called out Tyrese Gibson for what Tyrese did was you know how Paul Walker died recently, and Tyrese was in the same movie as him. So Tyrese was kind of milking his death for Facebook likes. And so Instagram and Facebook are basically profiting off your boredom. And you feel disconnected from all your friends and family if you disconnect from these apps and websites. So, I mean, imagine yourself without a phone or internet connection. I mean, think of how many friends you would lose from that if you disconnected. So I'm saying all this stuff because if you can create that experience for users, you're golden. Oh, I only got 5 minutes. I want to read this really quickly, okay?
No.
So basically, that's the power of the internet. That's the power of apps, and there's no limit when it comes to the internet. If you're a doctor, you can only see one patient at a time. But imagine if you're selling an app. You know, even if you're only making a few dollars per person, multiply that by millions of users, and you're basically a millionaire. And that's the real difference between me and a Google employee. And Google employees, they're probably smarter than me. They probably code better than me. Google itself makes like $55 billion per year. And do you know how many employees they have? They only have 40,000. So basically, every single Google employee is responsible for $1 million per year in revenue. But do they get paid $1 million a year? They don't. So basically, their salary is capped by Google. So if you want to become a millionaire, you can't work on a salary. They only make like 3% per year in raises, and that's horrible. You know, the inflation rate is kind of like 3%. So the other good thing about the internet is that you get a lot of unabashed opinions from users, and often these opinions are not very favorable. You know, if you're new to this, your first reaction would be to ignore them. Some of you might even get mad, but that's actually the wrong way to react to these negative comments. You should actually feel good about them. And why is that? Because your critics are actually your best friends. By this, I mean that the best feedback you can get is actually from your users, because they're the ones that are using your app. They're the ones that are paying you. So you should actually listen to what they have to say. And they might actually even come up with some good ideas for you. You know, some companies pay consultants a lot of money just for that kind of feedback. The other top question I get asked, is it too late to get into the app business? If you were trying to make like an Angry Birds clone, yes, I would say that it's too late. That ship has sailed. But if you actually have a really innovative app, and I don't mean an app that breaks new grounds, you can just take old ideas and put something new to it, like a new twist. I mean, for example, Snapchat is just a photo sharing app. You know, there's many photo sharing apps out there already, but they just added that twist of a self-deleting picture, and suddenly the company's worth $4 billion. So you just have to have that one little thing that makes you stand out from the other apps. And I wouldn't even be creating new apps today if I felt like it was too late. So why was I up coding for 10 days straight without sleep? It's because I actually have a new app coming out that I've showed Rob, and we think it's a Pandora / Spotify killer. So you guys can keep an eye out for it. I partnered up with the founder of mp3.com to create this app. So I wouldn't have made that app if I thought it was too late to make it big in the App Store. Before I run out of time, I have one last question for you guys to think about. If you flip a coin and it lands heads for 99 times, what are the chances of it being tails the next time? Some people think that it would be more likely to be tails, you know, but it actually isn't. It's always 50% chance when you flip a coin. The coin itself has no memory of what was flipped before. But some people don't realize this. They think that, you know, if they keep losing, eventually the universe would balance itself and then they would start winning again. But that's like the gambler's fallacy, you know. So the truth is that life is not like that. The universe doesn't tip the scale for you. You kind of have to make your own winnings from what you were dealt with in life. I always like to end my speeches with a quote from my late father. He's the one who molded me to who I am today, so I kind of want to share his wisdom. Before he passed away, this is what he said to me. Things like pride, disappointment, and fear all go away when you don't expect to live another day. What's left is what's important. Our time on this earth is short. Make it count, son. Thank you very much.
That was amazing.
Thank you.